Okay, Shabbat Perek Kaf, Mishnah Dalid. More halachot about feeding animals. Says the Mishnah, Gorfin midifnei haptam. The grof means to scrape, or to move away, to drag. So, ptam is an animal that you're fattening up to. Lefatem means to fatten up an animal so you can slaughter it then. Okay, so I'm feeding an animal, okay, and therefore, the Mishnah says, Gorfin means to scrape or to drag. B'Shabbat evos. Shedifnei hashor. Evos is the trough in front of the ox. Shemefatmimot. I'm fattening up the ox. So what do I want to do? I have feed in front of the ox, and I want to grof. I want to scrape some of the feed in front of the animal. Okay, I've got let's go back to my trough. Okay, these are animal troughs. Here, okay? So I'm fattening up the animal. I've got feed in front of the animal. Let me see if I can, and I want to scrape some of the feed from one side to the other. Now you're asking yourself, what's the problem with that? I'll tell you in a minute. Okay? So the Mishnah says, I'm allowed to grof lifnei aptam. Okay? Why? Shelo yit arev afrurit sheba evos. There's dirt in the evos, and I don't want the dirt to be mixed with the tevin, with the straw, and the seorim, and the barley that I give. V'yakutz b'ma'achalo. If there's dirt, if there's garbage in the food, it won't want to eat. So therefore I'm allowed to gorfim lifnei aptam. I'm allowed to scrape the straw from in front of the animal. Umisalkin litzdadim bipnei hari'i. What does that mean? Similarly, the Bartenura says, Misalkim teven shelefanav litzdadim. I can move. Lisalik means to move to the side. Straw in front of the animal to the sides. Kishehu rab, when there's too much. Kadesh lo yidrasu esenu beraglav yitlachlech beri'i, so that the animal doesn't stomp on the straw and then make it inedible, right? If the animal here we have in the trough, but in the olden times they didn't have these beautiful metal things, right? They would feed the animals all in front of the animals. Here we go. Let me give you another picture. Okay, and then you'd have to move from side to side because you want to move the straw in such a way that the animal doesn't step on it and mix its own excrement in the feed, because then it won't eat. And we want it to eat because it's a patam. We want it to eat so that it'll fatten up nicely. Divrei Rabbi Dosa. Rabbi Dosa says you could do these things. The Chachamim osrim. Chachamim say it's asur. Now, why in the world would it be asur? Let's look at the Bartenura. Chachamim say it's asur, both of them, whether you're doing greifata evus ve'echad teven shelefanav lo yisaken sadim. What's the problem? Okay, so the Bartenura says the following: Lo nechlaku Rabbi Dosa b'Chachamim ela be'evos shel kli. They didn't argue. They only argued if it's a trough of a kli, if it's made with a vessel, if it's a vessel feed trough. Aval evos shel karka. Sometimes the trough, we assume a feed trough is exactly like that. It's a kli. That's what we have. But in their times, what they would do is they would just dig out a little trough in the ground, because who had money to buy kelim? Who had money to make these things? Okay, hakol modim she'en gorvim. Everyone agrees in evos shel karka you're not allowed to scrape or move straw. Why? Dilma ate la'ashvuye gumot. Because there's an isur of ashvuye gumot. If you have indentations or holes or protrusions in the ground, you'll smooth them over, and that's an isur d'oraita of chofer. So Rabbanan gazru evos shel kli atu evos shel karka. The Rabbanan said, they made a gzeira. You're not allowed to do an evos of a kli, of a utensil, because maybe you'll do it in evos shel karka. As I often do, I may do a chart. So everyone said, greifat evos shel karka. If I have the trough in the ground that's dug into the ground, I want to scrape the straw from one side to the other. Everyone says it's asur, even Rabbi Dosa. So therefore, Chachamim said, if it's a kli, if it's a utensil, if it's a vessel, it's asur. Why? Gazru evos shel kli atu evos shel karka. Because if I allow you to do it here, then you'll do it here. Rabbi Dosa says mutar because you don't have that gzeira. So now we understand both opinions. Similarly, note I can take straw from one animal, okay, and put it in front of another animal on Shabbat. What would be the problem? It's inappropriate moving. Certainly it is appropriate. Because the animals are not so particular that they won't eat from food that was put in front of the next animal. So therefore you're allowed to do that on Shabbat. The Gemara does say that there are certain animals that you can't take from one to the other, because some animals won't eat from feed that has the stink, the spit of the other animals. They don't use forks and knives. So if it's been grossed out, if they're grossed out by the smell of a different animal, some animals won't eat the straw from other animals. So I guess you have to be a farmer to know which ones you can move from and which ones you can't. We'll stop here. Dedicate the learning to the Rebbe and my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. You can email me if you want. Have a good day.